Hello everyone, my name is Dark, and welcome to TCC Round 5 Semifinal Results. I was messing with the slideshow here a little bit, so it's on the wrong slide, but I can fix that real quick. Anyway, hello, how are y'all doing? Hope you're excited. I'm here once again with Athena slash Sumnerd, the GOAT. Say hello.
You can't actually prove that. You don't know I'm here.
That's true, actually, yeah. Maybe I'm just replicating your voice with AI.
Yeah, I'm like the world's worst ventriloquist puppet right now. But
Yeah,
anyway, hello.
awesome. And we're gonna be here to be commentating um the results, which are going to be quite awesome. So once again, I hope you're excited. In case you forgot somehow, we're at our final four, and now after this round, we're gonna be at our final two. Although the other two contestants technically aren't eliminated quite yet, they're still gonna play in one more round, but they're not gonna be fighting for the win. They're just gonna be fighting for third place. So it's basically still an elimination. But yeah, I'm just saying this so that nobody calls me out when they realize I didn't change any of the graphics, just say like relegated instead of eliminated. I'm just covering my bases. I love laziness.
Uh, I think that would confuse more people than anything else. If something pops up saying like, I don't know, TieTiePerson relegated, like, like they just go, what? What does that mean?
Relegated to the depths of hell. Anyway,
True.
all right, let's get on with it. The prompt was just like how archaeologists are tasked with making sense of buried artifacts from millennia ago, so too might archaeologists in the future excavate artifacts from our current era in an attempt to understand the times we lived in. Give an example of what an archaeologist in the year 4024 might dig up from 2024 and how they would interpret it. So, Athena, what are your thoughts on this prompt? Give us a half an hour podcast just about this prompt, your full analysis of it.
All right. So actually, this prompt underwent multiple changes as we were deciding upon it for this semifinals, and really the
Ooh.
final wording from this came throughout a combination of Meowie and Dark fine tuning it. Meowie giving a adaptation of an initial prompt regarding something to
Um,
do
it
with.
was basically it was sort of more mythology themed. I also wrote the original prompt that
Yeah.
Meowie like it was basically this, but instead of digging up artifacts, it's like mythology. Talked about ancient Greek, like how we still talk about ancient Greek mythology to this day, and like what sort of mythology would originate from the modern era that people will talk about a couple of thousand years from now. But that was
Mhm.
sort of a bit more vague, a bit um, less easy to work with. So we decided to go for this. I think it's a better a better version in general.
Yeah, looking at the TCC 2024 prompts group DM, I think back on August 11th, I just come in, I grabbed one of the prompts from our pile ago. We could do something like this with a more archaeological angle, and then that sort of just mutated into the 2000 year thing with 4024. And I think this bit's gone long enough. We can't actually talk about this prompt for 30 minutes. I would pull out my hair.
Damn, that's so sad. What we can talk about for 30 minutes, however, is the vote count. We actually cannot, there's not really a whole lot to say. We got 79 voters, and since every screen is a mega screen, every vote is a super vote. So that means 79 super voters whose names I'm gonna have to read out. It was reported as 80, but one of the votes was actually a duplicate, so that's unfortunate. One person got their vote counted twice, which means that the leaderboard and the bracket at the end are both slightly wrong. We didn't have time to fix those because we need Neonic to do that for us, and he's not here right now. But yeah, the reveals themselves like are gonna have accurate scores though, so I'll recall this again once we get to the end. But it really doesn't matter. Pretty much nothing changes except like a couple scores changed by like 0.5% at most. But pretty much that's all I have to say. Um, let's go on to the reading of the super voters' names. So, Athena, do you want to do the thing again, where we each read like and
Yeah, sure.
all right?
Is this is 79, right?
Yes, this is 79
So,
voters.
so whoever goes second has to read his name.
Okay, damn. I'm gonna let you do the funny this time. I'm gonna start. Okay, so Aaron,
Okay. ACN,
Algotistic,
Ameliorator,
Anepic,
Anne,
Arnub,
Artie,
Avocado,
AY163416,
Azurite,
BFDIA fan underscore 5346,
Big Beater,
series,
Barracks,
Cool Gamer 707,
Cringe Cat,
That Fat Cat 137,
Dragon,
Dumb BAC0N,
Abe,
Fish on the Internet,
Uno,
Ghost 256,
G-Man,
Gold Blocks,
Gray Sandwich,
Hamburger Helper,
Harry Soaps,
Henry,
RDM,
Italic,
J-Dude,
Jack 4,
JEIVC exclamation point, space 101, space, ampersand, space 94,
Julian SL,
Just a Toad,
Capco,
Kenzel,
Koopa,
Lemon Venom 23,
Loser,
LP Carver,
Lime,
Live Nova,
Maple Sky,
MGR,
MK Wii All Pro,
Mr. McMikey 22,
Navy.
Normal Bun,
No, sorry, I don't know.
Anchu,
Pi,
Q Uni,
Random Gamer 123,
Ref 32 Locked Out,
Score,
Sergeant Snivy,
Slurpafee,
Smooth,
Snoozing Newt,
Someone Else,
Starsight,
Stealthy Subtile,
That Nerd Albert,
Twiggy,
Varigold,
Voy,
White Cyclosa,
Whole Note 1,
Whizcause,
Knoppet,
Zyloba,
Yonelius,
Yoshi Kid 8. We now both mispronounced Yanelius's name.
oh, wow, that's so sad. Okay, whatever. Yoshi Pipe 539,
What? Who is that?
and Zetex.
Hi.
Yippee!
Thanks, Kim, for voting.
Anyway,
That's all 79 of you.
at last, the funny has been done. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for the pre-result segment. I'm trying to think of. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, hold on. I forgot to get my water. Be right back for
Okay.
exactly 10 seconds.
I've got a Diet Coke. It's pretty good.
I'm back. See, I told
Dude.
you it was going to be 10 seconds.
Dude, he's back.
I
Guess
love
who's
water.
back? Back again. Guys, I need one of you to guess. No,
All
it's not
right.
us. It's not we.
Sorry, it's like it got really, really cold today, like for no particular reason. It was like really warm earlier today, so now my throat is kind of suffering, but I have water here, so it's fine. Anyway, I think that's about all we have to say before we begin. Let's go on to the reveal grid. We have 2 matchups to go through today, no more, no less. So it's not going to take a whole lot of time, but it's going to be really interesting regardless. So let me do this. And we are about to begin with the first matchup. Are you ready, Athena?
Ready as I will ever be.
All right. Please make way for TieTiePerson, and Spooky. Now, as is usual for this phase of the game, we're going to be starting with their DRPs first. So, TieTiePerson's DRP was microwaves, spinning plates suggested vinyl compatibility, resulting fire music underdelivered, which, I guess, kind of unfortunate. There was another microwave response. So this was kind of part of a sandblast, but it is what it is, I guess. But we can still analyze the response itself based on its merits, and I think in terms of uniqueness of concept, I think the whole spinning plates thing, referencing the plate at the bottom of the microwave, is a pretty unique way to go about. Even like just off of the whole microwave thing, this is a pretty unique path already. So I think this is quite a nice way to go in general, even if it was sandblasted. I think the whole fire music thing is a bit of a loose way to do wordplay in a response like this, because if we're talking about the music under-delivering, why exactly would it be described as fire, if not just to force the pun with the whole microwave thing, microwave fire, etc. So I think that is a bit of a loose end in terms of the way the response is worded, but in general, I guess other than that, I think it's pretty easy to understand, and the concept is pretty good. A fairly solid response all around, but then again, I think all responses this round were pretty solid mostly. So yeah, Athena, do you want to read Spooky's DRP?
Yes, Spooky's DRP is Gym Shorts. Futuristic bacterial civilizations debut as the Lost Colonies. So I think there's a sort of implicature going on with this response here that some of the voters might not have picked up on since I was reading over TCC discussion during the voting period. But there seems to be the sort of implication that the human race will not be around anymore in 4024 due to war, famine, whatever, leaving only microbial life. Dark, do you have any input on that?
I don't I think this was talked about a bit in a TCC discussion channel, but I thought it was interesting the choice of gym shorts for the object, which I guess works if you're trying to describe a sort of gross object that you can associate with a lot of bacteria. Although I feel out of all things that TWOW responses generally try to optimize, I think grossness is not one that generally leads to a very high score. But in general, I think the whole implication that this is that the mistake that the archaeologists are making is rooted in the fact that the humans are not around anymore. I think that alone was a pretty interesting concept to have, even though I don't think it was necessarily made out to its fullest potential in this response. I think it was left a bit implied, whereas it could have been made a bit more explicit with using a different concept and a different object. But I think in general, for anyone who noticed that, that's probably going to be some bonus points right there. So I think both of these responses are a bit they have their weak points, I guess, but I think overall both of them bring some interesting concepts to the table, even if they didn't quite execute it. Even if they didn't quite execute them super well. But overall, yeah, pretty good responses. I would have expected no less from a matchup this stacked. And yeah, do you have anything more to say, Athena?
Yeah, I think as a sort of a bit of a tangent here, I think it's a little surprising that Spooky was the only one to sort of go for this sort of extinction angle. I would have expected at least one of our finalists, well, not finalists, sorry, one of our semifinalists who have attempted some sort of joke about, the long-term nuclear waste semiotics, the messages that go, this place is not a place of honor, no esteemed deed is commemorated here, such and such. Since that sort of lends itself to the, misinterpretation of, archaeologists and future researchers, but, that's also a very difficult idea to convey in a response, and especially in a way that is easily understandable by your median voter, I think.
Yeah.
And then something I also wanted to comment on about TieTie's response is I think it's a little funny that to imagine a bunch of archaeologists standing around a microwave and going, "Hey, look, we found a really cool turntable. You know what we should do? We should play this antiquated 2,000-year-old music medium on it, since vinyl was sort of more of a 20th century thing, and it's already retro in the 21st, right?
Maybe vinyl was secretly like the high-tech way to play music in the year 4024. Who knows? maybe they've innovated upon the concept.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah.
Anyway, I think that's about all there is to say. Let's see which one. I mean, not which one. There's no of that here. But let's see the scores that both of these got. But we're not going to be revealing which one belonged to whom. So, let's see it. And what a way to start the semifinals. Look at that gap of 44% between these DRPs.
Yeah.
And
what a gap.
Yeah, kind of hard to say anything about that, but one of these contestants is going to have one hell of an uphill battle to climb in order to beat the other here. But nonetheless, nothing is impossible here. There were a lot of good responses. There were a lot of responses that were a bit worse, although I think they were all like had their merits. Some were clearly better than the others, and we don't know which ones belong to whom. So let's advance to the main responses and see how well Spooky and TieTiePerson are going to fare against each other. In the main reveal, TieTie's response was Hangman Games documented executions. His final words, EOIUTRLCL CDP, strange language, which is abnormally humor-based of a response to see this leading the game, especially as a main response. Humor responses, again, not necessarily bad, but always have that sort of aura of risk to them, which means that people generally don't go for them as much in high stakes rounds, high stakes situations. Although you could say that this response also has this concept-based side too, with the whole Hangman thing being associated with a confusion about the language we spoke and how different it was from whatever language you speak in 4024. So it does have this concept side to it, but I think I'd be remiss in not talking about the humor side of it, because I feel like it relies on that quite a bit more, since I think the whole Hangman being confused for language thing is a bit, I don't want to say a less unique concept, but I think that alone is sort of wouldn't make a response that's quite as complete as this one, in my opinion. So yeah, Athena, if you want, you can read Spooky's response now.
Outlets. With permanently shocked faces, they're revered as history's witnesses. So, Spooky's response obviously leverages the sort of pareidolia that, everyone should be familiar with, such that we see patterns and faces and things that aren't actually animate. And at least if you're American, I think you should instantly recognize the surprise and shocked face that a outlet with a electrical ground has, the three-pronged outlet. If you're, another nation, you might not recognize the socket. So a bit of an Western-centric response by some regards, but I think it's a good response. It every time I look at an outlet, I'm like, hey, look at the little guy. I'm gonna go poke his eyes out when I plug in my phone charger now or something.
Damn.
It's not a normal thing to think. It's not normal. I'm weird.
But I think the general association between outlets and shocked faces is definitely I think it's pretty widespread from what I've heard. Maybe it's just me, like I'm in Brazil and I've heard of it, and I don't really, I can't really confirm if everywhere else that isn't the US and Brazil it's true, but I think, I feel like I've heard this association being done by a lot of people in different countries, not just these two. And I think in general it's a pretty easy concept to understand, even if your country's outlets might look different. So I think that could be a bit of a point of risk with this response. Like, maybe some people might not have quite understood it, but I think the risk there is fairly small, and I think the payoff of the history witnesses thing is a pretty nice creative approach to the whole history, like, theme in general. So it's a pretty nice response. Does lack a bit of the humorous punch that TieTie's has, but in general, in concept, it's pretty damn good. And I don't really think I have much to say about it. So, do you have anything else to say, Athena?
I think both of these responses sort of take a similar approach to the prompt in general, such that there is a semiotic misinterpretation of signage and general symbols. There's a sort of I guess both of them have a sort of oversight in that Spookies might have a cultural locality to it, whereas TieTie's strongly implies that the answer part of the Hangman game is faded away and only the guesses remain. But I think both of them are very strong concepts, and we'll have to see which prevails.
Also, one last interesting thing that I thought about with TieTie's response: every other response has the archaeologist digging up a very explicit object, but TieTie's response just says Hangman games. So, like, how are these games stored? How are they documented? Is it like pieces of paper with the Hangman games in them? So, I don't know. Like, it's a bit of a funny thing to think about. Like,
presumably they're like the Kilroy was here drawings that a lot of U.S. soldiers left throughout World War II or something like that.
Yeah, maybe you just carve your Hangman games into a wall somewhere, and then so that they can stay for thousands of years. I would do that, honestly. Sounds awesome.
Sure.
Real. Anyway, well, there's no more stalling here. TieTiePerson and Spooky, one of these people is going to make it to the finale of TCC 2024, winning their fifth round, or rather their fifth matchup in a row. And the other is going to have to fall tragically close, although they will still have a second chance in the bronze match. So, regardless, I think both of these contestants should be proud of how far they've gotten, but only one of them is going to get to battle for it all. And so, the first finalist, let's see which one it's going to be.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Absolute domination by TieTie. Yup, fucking ridiculous indeed. TieTie enters the finale with a bang, with a score of 83.15% in a final 4 round, nonetheless. TieTie keeping his old penchant of dominating late game rounds, I guess. And hey, what more fitting way to end this first matchup? Amazing job by TieTie. Seed 1, historically dominant. Are you really even surprised to see him get this far? He pretty much, like, to say he deserves it, like, is like an understatement even. He was born to be here, if anything. So, amazing job to TieTie for making it to the finale. And unfortunately, Spooky is going to have to leave the main competition. Of course, again, still going to be able to fight for third place against either Trojan or Not a Donut, which we'll see in a bit, but unfortunately not quite able to make the run for the win. It would have been a crazy run, to say the least. Would have been really awesome to see the 44 seed upset the 1 seed, but unfortunately, against TieTie, it's just not going to happen like that. But nonetheless, you played an amazing game. You performed very admirably. It's going to be sad to see you go. So, one finalist is there. TieTiePerson is going to be facing either Trojan or Not a Donut. And I think there's nothing else to do but to introduce them and have them step on stage to decide their fates once and for all. Trojan's DRP was clocks resemble pre-portioned plates. Commoners were constrained to 1155 section. In classic Trojan style, he does a clever association with an object and the way it might be perceived via its properties. So like the clock's arms sort of resembling a sort of sectioning of a plate that he can make some comment on top of, that in this case the commoners only getting like a fraction of the food because poverty, I guess. In fact, phrasing it like that, it's pretty funny actually. But anyway, I don't really know if other people might have found the 1155 section thing that clear. I mean, if we're talking about like clockwise movement, wouldn't that be like sort of 95% of the plate instead of 5%? Not exact percentages, but you get what I mean. Like, wouldn't it be like sort of midnight in 5 minutes, the section that you're talking about? But I guess that's just pedantry. But if anyone sees that like sort of from a clock's perspective, like from an actual timekeeping perspective, they might not be able to figure out exactly what the intention was here. But nonetheless, other than that hiccup, I think this is a pretty sort of nice way to like associate the whole clocks thing with the sort of general concept of inequality, I guess, which I think is also pretty pertains pretty heavily to the whole archaeology thing in general, although this is an association that not as many people might have acquired from this, and it might not have mattered as much. But in general, pretty general, like sort of associating two unexpected objects. And yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about this entry. It swings, and I guess it does kind of hit, but at a bit of a cost maybe in the execution. So Athena, if you want to read Not a Donut's DRP.
Alright, Not a Donut submitted Graves. Seeking slang knowledge, archaeologists exhume final messages. Response? I can't pronounce that.
You can just say skull emoji, I guess.
That's 2 words. That's not 1 word.
Wow, this is an EWOW response actually.
This is an EWOW response. Yeah, Nad cheated the word limit. But anyway, skull emoji. Regarding this response, I actually really liked it. I saw it for the first time, and there's several leaps in logic in this response, but I laughed at it. I thought it was funny. I do think it's a sort of there's an interesting implication such that the difference between archaeology and grave digging is approximately 400 years when you really get down to it, and especially when you consider the contextual means by which archaeologists are exploring and what culture they're from, what land they're in, right? Essentially what becomes treasure hunting and grave robbery becomes very blurred, especially when you consider, say, the European powers sort of exploring Egyptian monuments, especially the pyramids of Giza, right? But anyway, I do think it's interesting that Nad chose to invoke graves as opposed to, like headstones, because while there might be grave markers, and instead of reading the messages there, maybe they've worn away after 2,000 years. I don't know. The archaeologists have made the choice to dig at these graves, which it makes sense. That's something archaeologists do. But specifically, they're looking for linguistic knowledge of previous civilizations, which is more of a anthropologist thing rather than a archaeologist thing. But either way, it is interesting to think that a future archaeologist might discover a human skull and think, oh yes, this is clearly a punctuation mark. This is clearly a word, as opposed to, oh yeah, this is my cranium. This is a human body. But maybe Nad is telling us that 2,000 years in the future, human skulls aren't going to look like that. We'll have significantly mutated and violated several evolutionary laws within 2,000 years. Who knows?
True.
Yeah.
This really is like this sort of really Zoomer style joke of like looking at a skull and being like, oh my god, emoji reference? Which is just really funny. In general, I think there is a bit of an iffy aspect to this response, which I think Epic in chat put very well when he said, no offense, but why did you submit an emoji response in one of the most high-stakes rounds maybe of all time, Mad? So, emoji responses, not exactly known for being slam dunks, nor very safe concepts to go for. However, as I said, humor can go both ways. I mean, we talked about this with TieTie's DRP, which ended up scoring 66%. Like, even if there's sleeps in logic with the whole fire music thing, and like, even if a response leans more on humor, like the whole Hangman strange language thing, they can still do very well if done correctly. And overall, I think this response is pretty funny. The whole association, like, between like the final messages thing and the skulls, as Athena said, is like more on the anthropology side of the spectrum, but I think for the average voter it's not going to matter that much. I think it's pretty on point with the prompt's theming. So yeah, I think overall, although very risky in format, I think this response does, of course, hit all the beats of the prompt. So it's a bit of a risk, but I think for Nad, trying to beat an opponent like Trojan, I think maybe it's not very, maybe it's not like that bad of a risk to take. So let's see. Athena, do you have anything else to comment on?
Yeah, it's certainly a very unorthodox approach, but maybe when you're up against the Grim Reaper, you need to remind him that you're not afraid of death, by posting his skull.
True. Maybe when you're going up against the Grim Reaper, all you have to say is skull emoji.
True.
And yeah, well, let's see the scores that these two DRPs got. And in a similar vein to the first matchup, one of the DRPs scores very low and the other a bit higher, but this time only at 50%, which is definitely far more beatable of a threshold than 66% from last matchup. So I wouldn't say it's over quite yet. We're going to have to move on. Yeah, we're going to have to move on to the main responses, the real meat of this matchup, to determine who's going to come out on top. So, Trojan's main response was, remotes look ritualistic. Humans targeted crops, mashing increase volume buttons. Which, once again, classic Trojan style of sort of using wordplay relating to the object and putting it in quotes. My god, this guy just keeps responding like this. I can't believe it. Anyway, this response, like, I think the whole remotes look ritualistic thing is a sort of weird way to put it, I guess. Like, I imagine the implication is that, like, the way these remotes work is like as a sort of prayer, and not that the archaeologists believe that it literally increases crops by itself. Like they believe it's part of they probably believe it's part of like, I guess, a ritual to try to increase their crop harvests, but that wasn't like communicated very well, I would say. Like it's a bit ambiguous just from the wording alone. But aside from that, there's also the obvious part of the wordplay, which I think is pretty nice. I don't know how else to describe it. I think the volume thing being both on the remotes and a property of the crops is a pretty clever association, although I don't think the word volume is really like linked that much to crops. I would imagine like people are talking about more like mass instead of volume if they're imagining like crop yield. But then, I mean, I don't know. This is just how I thought about it, so people might disagree with that. But in general, I think beside the wording being a little bit, maybe trying to fit a little bit too much, or maybe a little bit too forced, I think the concept underneath it is definitely a very strong one overall. So yeah, Athena, do you want to read Not a Donor CRP?
Of course. Microwaves. Preparing modern technology for 2024. Supposed time machines explode. So, unfortunate confusion with TieTie's response, obviously. These were both about microwaves and their function as devices. Both of them sort of strongly implied that, any future archaeologists would be able to find either a battery-operated or, a powerable microwave such that they could test it still. I think there's a sort of... initially, when I read this response, I was a little confused, but I think when Nat is using the term modern, he's referring to, our perception of modern rather than, a archaeologist from 4024. They go up to a microwave and they go, okay, let's, this is a time machine. It looks, it's shielded. It looks, it's, vaguely brutalist. It's strange. Let's go back to the year 2024 to see what was up. You have it burn out, and then its magnetic coil malfunctions, and then explodes, and everyone is blasted with X-ray radiation, and everyone is sad, and that's
really not a
risk you
good
take in
thing
the
to be
business.
blasted with.
I think it's a good invocation of the sort of digital display of the microwave, and funny enough, both of these competitors had a time-related response, considering Trojan's 1155 response. Just one of them is analog, one of them being digital. Sort of interesting paradigm here.
Yeah, I think in general, there is a very good comparison to be had between both of these entries, which is, I guess, the concept, being really, Okay, actually, I'm going to rephrase this. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, similar to Trojan's response, Nad's concept was really, really good, in my opinion. The whole, sort of the buttons on the panel of the microwave, etc., how you can type in the time, literally evoking imagery of a time machine is a very clever association. And, of course, the whole supposed time machine's exploding because it's a microwave and you're not going to leave it on running for 20 minutes, although I don't think most microwaves should explode after just 20 minutes of usage, even if it's consecutive, but I don't know. But in general, I think the concept is very good, but the wording might not have conveyed it very well, because I see a couple people in the chat confused, but in general, I think not a lot of people might have understood why the time machine is actually going to explode, especially if they have that preconception in their head that, why would a microwave explode if you set it to 20 minutes and 24 seconds? And I think Nad had an earlier version of this response, actually, that sort of fixed this wording issue by claiming that that it was the technology that they put into it that exploded, and making that more clear. But I think that left I don't remember the exact response, but I remember thinking that that particular aspect was much clearer before this recent version of his response. But I don't remember if it was actually better or not. Maybe it was just that one aspect, and then it sacrificed that for something else. But I think, sort of in general, these responses are pretty compatible in that sense. Very nice concepts. Wording might have taken a bit of a hit, but with a prompt like this, I think it's hard to convey like all the beats perfectly, even if you have a really good concept. So I really can't blame either of them for having this happen. So yeah, in general, very nice way to end these reveals with what I believe to be a very even matchup overall. So Athena, do you have any more comment?
I'm actually engaging with the chat right now, and Nad was saying that his intention with this response, I think you touched upon it, was indeed to take a piece of technology from 4024 and then send it back 2,000 years to sort of bootstrap technological development and for the human race. And the introduction of this, these tools into the microwave, is a sort of bad interaction that cause either the magnetron to explode, through whatever unfortunate interaction that might have. But either way, I think both of these responses are actually very efficient in portraying their central idea. Like using the microwave display for 20 minutes and 24 seconds is, normally if you try to phrase, they confuse the timer for the, a year display, that might take several words, but, Nad managed to compress that down to a single word, which is, I find very impressive. It's a good syntactical trick that he's, employed.
Yeah, and as you said, not too dissimilar to how Trojan sort of visualized a small slice of a circle by saying 1155 earlier, which I guess might not have been as clear as the 2024 one, but in general, pretty interesting that both of these contestants who were pitted against each other both sort of managed to use this time thing to save words and build upon the concept. So yeah, pretty funny coincidence there. Yeah. If you have anything more to comment, you can comment now.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of determines what American nation ends up in the bronze game and what American nation ends up in the finals. And of course, when I say American, I'm not referring to the United States of America, because that's a sort of jingoistic term, but North American, if I need to clarify.
Yeah, I'm sure the contestants really appreciate that we're stalling this matchup by talking about the semantics of like
I do want to talk a little bit longer, just so Trojan suffers a little bit more.
Anyway, okay, in all seriousness though, TieTie waits at the peak for his challenger in the finale, and there's only one thing left to do, but to see which of these great 2 hours is gonna fall and which one is gonna meet him there in the finale of TCC 2024. So, may the best player win, and let's go. And what other way could it have ended? What other way? From the beginning of TCC 2024, what other way could it possibly have been than for TieTiePerson, the 1 seed, to beat Trojan, the 2 seed, in the finale? And yeah, a surprisingly close matchup, especially in contrast to the previous one, where the gap was 33%. But yeah, Trojan manages to take it, technically by a sweep even, placing his DRP very slightly above Not a Donut's main response. But yeah, Trojan, after so many rounds of dominance, barely makes it to the finale of TCC 2024 over Not a Donut, who obviously put up a very good fight, came quite close, but sadly, no cigar in the end. And against Trojan, close doesn't cut it. Unfortunately, Not a Donut is going to be moving down to the third place match, where he'll get to fight Spooky for the bronze medal. But in the end, this is it. The finale of TCC 2024 is decided. TieTiePerson is going to face Trojan.
What a crazy round.
Wow. A never before seen finale. A finale that's as grandiose today as it would have been in 2020. An insane way to end an insane season.
I think Trojan
And
said that they've never had a proper matchup, have they?
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm basing this off of. They've never faced in a finale before. This is the first time. So, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit hype. And for such a grandiose season, I really could not have imagined any other way for it to end. So, yeah, let's look at the leaderboard right now. There's very little to look at, only 8 responses after all. I will mention once again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the reveal, these scores are slightly wrong. It still has the duplicate vote in there, so these scores are off by like 0.5% or something like that. But nothing really major changed here, so we're just gonna analyze these as is. So TieTiePerson pretty obviously dominated this
Insane.
round. It was not even close. Almost a 30% gap to the next highest placing contestant, and even with his own DRP, 17% gap, meaning his top response just straight up crushed it.
If you
So
look at the VRD there, right? Almost half of voters put TieTie first.
yeah,
Um, that's I don't think I've seen anything like that in modern days. That's
in the round
crazy.
of this size and with 8 responses, like maybe if there were fewer, maybe if there were like 4 or 5, but with 8 responses around this stacked and with 80 VPR, that's quite insane. And I'm telling you, you guys were not ready for the reality where TieTie's response was at 91% with 40 VPR, by the way. That was a thing
Yeah,
that was
he
happening
killed
during
it throughout
voting.
the entire round.
Yeah, TieTie was pretty much untouchable throughout the entire voting period. I don't think that's really that big of a surprise looking at the final leaderboard, but yeah. In general, congratulations to TieTie. Very much a deserved performance with such good responses. And yeah, I was gonna say TieTie was still the only person to not have had a single response in the entirety of TCC 2024 placed below 50%, even DRPs. But actually, that's been changed by the removal of the duplicate vote. You can see here that Trojan's DRP would have placed below 50 if it weren't for the duplicate vote being removed, but it did end up getting above 50%. Actually, I don't remember if Trojan's response last round, DRP last round, placed below 50. Well, I don't remember, but either way, NAD before this round had not had a single response placed below 50%, but um, clearly not true anymore. So unfortunate. And yeah, um, what else is there to say? Funny enough, TieTie's response wasn't even the least controversial. That was actually the last place response, Spookies, which is funny. It's funny to see the gap in controversiality between NADs and Spookies, given that they both scored like almost the same, even without the duplicate vote. They scored like really close to each other. And yeah,
Mhm.
I don't, again, I don't think there's a whole lot to analyze here. Like, it's
Um,
only 8 responses.
yeah, not at the final point. I will say throughout the period, Trojan remained anywhere between like 2 to 7% above NAD. It got pretty close to switching hands several times. Spooky and Nad switched places multiple times, I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
think Spooky
but
was in the fourth for most of the voting period, actually. Nad dropping to fourth was only like sort of near the end. And so was the gap between Trojan and Nad widening to 7%. It was closer to like 2 or 3 for most of the voting period, although still, even though it was that close, Trojan was still ahead of Nad for like the vast majority of the voting period. It like very rarely switched over to Nad's favor.
mhm. Oh,
And
actually, something I do want to point out. Now that I'm looking at this, TieTiePerson's top response presumably is uh, depicting a Hangman game, right? That was actually played. I think the word Hangman is the a valid word for what is going on there
ooh, that's interesting. Holy shit.
because it has every vowel except A. Which is why I noticed.
Yo, I actually looked at that response and wondered if it was a valid word that was like
Mhm.
that was like being depicted here with those letters, but I didn't really bother to try to figure it out. But I feel like that could have definitely been intentional. We can ask Tai Tai later, but yeah, very
Mhm.
nice Easter egg there from Tai Tai. I don't know if anyone actually noticed that, but if anyone did, I guess probably wouldn't really make a big difference. I mean, they're probably
Yeah, definitely
like
not.
statistically they were probably voting it in the top 3 either way. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um that's all for the
The
leaderboard.
super majority did. Jesus.
Yeah, insane. It got one seventh place vote and one last place vote, by the way. It's kind of hard to see here, but that's the amount. Um anyway, I guess oops. We can move on to the bracket, which there really isn't a whole lot to cover here. It's just this area. Like, don't even need to scroll anywhere. Like, it's just these matches. Anyway, Tai Tai with the nice 83 versus 50 here. The scores here are also wrong, by the way. Only the reveal scores are accurate, and we'll post an accurate leaderboard later. But yeah, finale TieTiePerson versus PlasmicTrojan, 1 versus 2. Who could have guessed? Damn. Oh boy. But yeah, I
Man.
think the bronze game, the seeding here is a lot more interesting. It's 44 versus 14, which I can confidently say who expected this to happen. Probably not a whole lot of people. But yeah, that's pretty much
Um,
all there is to analyze. I mean, it's just the finale and the bronze game.
I'm actually curious. Okay, obviously, there's been a sort of reversal of tide, such that Tai Tai has won the last two rounds, where Trojan killed the first three, I think, right?
Yeah.
If you were to swap their positions in the bracket, right? Like, say Trojan did stick on seed one throughout the qualifiers, would they both have still ended up here?
Um, Probably. We don't even have to look at anything outside of this screen because actually no way. I guess
Trojan
we
wins
have
everything,
no
obviously,
way.
right?
No, yeah, because Avocado got second. Remember,
Uh-huh.
Avocado got
Would
second, so Tai Tai obviously would have
Tai
lost to
Tai would have lost?
Avocado if they switched places with 51%.
Uh
percent So yeah,
so Tai Tai
Trojan.
definitely benefited from doing very well in the qualifiers in that regard.
Yeah, Trojan would have made it regardless because Spooky did not score above 56% and Radiant did not score above 66.91. But yeah, aside from that one round, Tai Tai would have made it though.
That's crazy.
But yeah,
So never
overall,
let it be said that neither of them didn't earn it, even if one of them was a buy.
damn, yeah, pretty interesting. But yeah, I think we've talked a lot about the finale match, but I think this bronze game match is also pretty interesting. Obviously, not a donut,
Mhm.
based off the seating alone, is a pretty big favorite, and I think is definitely more of a prominent TWOWer in games like in the modern age. But Spooky has that experience, and Spooky did score above Nad this round, so who knows what's gonna happen there? I think it's a pretty. I think overall it's pretty. Could really go either way for those two.
I agree. I think both of these are very even matches, all things considered.
Yeah. So, yeah, entire bracket now filled out with books, but we're gonna have to wait a little bit to fill them out with scores as well. And yeah, we are finally nearing the end. Holy shit, I can hardly believe it. And I can hardly wait too for how insane of a finale this is gonna be. And
We need to decide the prompt, man.
yeah, I hope you are all as excited as we are because it's going to be a banger no matter what happens. So, yeah, thank you all for watching thus far. It's been an amazing experience. I hope you all have enjoyed the reveals, the streams, just about everything we've put out because there's been a lot of effort put into it. I hope you all enjoyed everything. And yeah, I would like to thank you all for being here, and thank you to Athena for commentating with me again.
Thank you. Yeah. Great to be here.
Awesome. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say really. Do you have anything else to close off with?
I will be rooting for Nad and Spooky to beat both Tai Tai and Trojan in the final round draw.
True, that is something that could happen. It would lead to a really, really funny looking leaderboard, but and they would also not really gain them any extra points or anything like that. I mean, they've already lost the semifinal matches, but
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
they could they could still establish their dominance one last time and prove that the semifinals weren't like predetermined from the start. And
Mhm.
yeah, um, overall, I don't think I have anything else to say that I haven't said already. Again, it's been awesome so far, and it's going to continue being awesome all the way until the end. I'm sure of that. So, thank you all for watching, and I'm going to be signing off now. See you all for the finale of TCC 2024. Goodbye.
Goodbye.